Good morning, everybody. If you haven't already, say where in the world you're from. My name is Waylon Lewis. I'm coming to you live from Boulder, Colorado. And yes, I keep my Christmas tree up as long as it'll last, even though I'm a heathen Buddhist. I have been very sick for a very long time, like 12 days. So I'm struggling to get my ears to open up. I've barely been working, and I've been, reading books and things because eventually TV gets boring, and napping. That's been my 12 days. How are all of you? So we have 1 hour here. So probably another 100 people will join over the next 10 minutes or so via Facebook and other streams. So I'm going to do my best, and I hope I'm doing okay. How am I doing okay? How am I doing so far? On a scale of 1 to 10, with a little bit of understanding for me being sick. There's always a delay in the comments. I hope all of you are well. And I think I'm a convert to getting a flu shot next year. Okay, so we start all of these things by taking a really good posture. Follow along with me if you would. Take a great posture. We'll do a meditation that connects with writing and connects with finding your voice and connects with being of benefit and connects with finding joy and meaning in your life. We'll do that at the very end of this hour. So again, we only have 1 hour, so I'm going to move relatively quickly, but I'm not going to rush, because if I rush, you won't take anything in. So take a really good posture. You can kind of wangle around, loosen up, eyes are open, and with friendliness and respect, think of everyone all over the world. We got Egypt, we got people in Palm Springs. I didn't see all of it. Denver, people all over the world. I think I saw Denmark. So with respect and friendliness and a bow, give it away. So that's just a nice way to start, with a pause. We, particularly in America, like to start by rushing into things and half kind of jumping into things while half doing the last thing. Taking one little pause allows us to enter properly and do something fully. Washington, D.C. Hey, so welcome to 749 of you. We usually have a range of maybe 500 to 1,500 folks. I don't really know what I'm talking about. But today I'm going to go through really the curriculum of Elephant Academy. Does everyone know what Elephant Academy is? We are not doing a hard sell here. I don't honestly mind if you do it or not. It is really for you. It's not a thing to make money off of for Elephant. We really try to keep it affordable. It's like $850. And if you join today during the meeting, or within a very brief time after the meeting, you'll get $108 off. But that discount will expire pretty quickly after the meeting, maybe an hour or two tops. So the curriculum of the Academy is really to take us from wherever we're at right now and get us to a place where we can find our voice. And writing, as I like to say, isn't about writing. What is writing about? Does anyone have an idea? What is writing in its best, truest, most genuine way? What is it about? What's the potential of writing? Anyone? Go for it. Go for it, India. Go for it, San Diego. It's about expression, but expression of what? Of self, but what does that mean? Connection, yeah, it's about connecting. Gosh knows we need more of that in this world. Sharing. Release, that's kind of getting to telling the truth. Insight. So yes, it's definitely about connection. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Expression of experience, that's kind of getting to what I wanted to talk about. Finding your voice, being of benefit. So it's about both. So thank you, everyone. Venting, I love it. So it really is about venting on some level. It's about finding your voice. It's about finding I had a hard day yesterday. At the end of yesterday, I was really sad. I was really disappointed about something that didn't go well, and in work. And that's a moment when you can either kind of stew in it, and you can, who here has been sad in the last month, in the last week? You can either stew in it, you can sit in it, kind of like sitting in wet wool outside, and you just kind of don't feel very good. Although wool is a wonderful material, it's better than plastic. Or you can write about it. When you write about it, you can find the truth of your experience. You're not writing as performance for others. You write about truth of your experience. And in so doing, venting, in so doing, this catharsis happens, right? This alchemy at its best can happen. This alchemy is a word that means changing like lead to gold, right? It can change being caught in the sadness to appreciating where you're at in your life, understanding the sadness, and being more over it, as my Buddhist teacher likes to say. Our whole goal is not to get rid of the sadness, not to suppress it, but to get more over it. So you have some perspective, so you can breathe, right? Who here does yoga or any kind of breath work? When you can breathe through something, even in climbing, I climb, then suddenly you can appreciate it without being caught in it, right? Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to get my ears to open up. I have, if you just arrived, I've been pretty sick for a week, or 12 days now. So we're going to go through the 8 steps of finding that voice, catharsis, and then the magic thing. A lot of you said connecting. The magic thing that happens after you do that for yourself is if someone else reads that, they too might connect with that experience, with that feeling in their own life through your story, and be free of their own suffering. Now, they're not going to, again, get rid of the sadness or get rid of the suffering, but they'll be free of being caught in it. So that's catharsis. That's what we talk about as catharsis. And it's magic. It really is magic. Yes, it definitely helps. So put your questions and ask a question there. And if you want to get the discount and join, remember that'll expire shortly after the meeting. That's in the green button. Okay. So we're going to go through the 8 steps. These are not 8 tips, meaning 8 random tips that you can take or leave or blah, blah, blah. These are 8 steps on the path from where you are at right now, whether you're an experienced writer, and some of you are, whether you're a professional journalist, some of you are, whether you're an average Joe or Jane and you write a little bit, whatever your situation is, it's 8 steps to get to or to return to your voice and be able to produce that alchemy and be of benefit. Because being a benefit from Elephant's point of view is ultimately the point here. Writing is not merely selfish or for ourselves. It is for ourselves, but in so doing, it can transform this world into something more kind, more awake, right? All right, without further ado, let's go through these. So number 1, this is connected to writer's block, but that'll be number 2. Number 1 is you're not a writer unless you're writing. Who here is writing every day? I am not. I'll raise my hands. I write professionally for Elephant every day. Am I doing my own writing, separate from Elephant? Not particularly. So I'm sort of in between. Guillermo, that can be a wonderful addiction. I wouldn't use the word addiction, but I would say it's a craft, right? Okay, so most of us aren't writing every day. I would say that I have projects that I want to write that I am not writing. So who here is not writing every day? I'm going to raise my hand for that one too. I am not writing the thing I want to be writing. Who here is not writing? Just say not. 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 All right, great. So there's a lot of both. So number 1, you're not a writer unless you're writing. Writing is sort of like, it's not a noun, right? I am a writer. It's a verb. You really it's an active thing. It's a craft. So like any craft, what helps? Okay, folks, let's bring it in just because we have limited time. I know there's a ton of us, but we get the feeling of the community here of where we're at. So, and I know there's a delay too. So we really have to be active to be a writer. Being a writer isn't just thinking about what we want to write. It's actually doing it. It's actually practicing that catharsis when you're sad, right? Not letting it go and then it's gone. You can come back to it in a different setting, in a different context, but it's really about a craft. It's a daily craft. Do you have to write at the same time? Anything like that? We go into that in the academy. And obviously lots of people work differently. But generally, I want to communicate the notion that you're not a writer unless you're writing. I think I'm a writer, and I'm writing every day. I write an editor's letter in our newsletter every single day, 6 days a week, actually. Emily writes one of them. So I think she is writing a little bit. But, you know, it's kind of like if you think you're a farmer, you have to actually relate with the animals or relate with the crops every single day. They're dependent on your part in that ecosystem. Okay, and I do have to. This is the last time I'm going to apologize, but I'm working through kind of a mental fog. So I hope this is useful. Number 2, it is free, so hopefully it'll be of benefit and useful. I am going to try to make sure it will be. Number 2, getting unstuck. If you're working with writer's block, most of us who aren't writing aren't working with writer's block. We're just not writing. We're busy. We're tired at the end of the day. We want to watch Netflix or whatever our habit is, deal with our family or deal with our, go out with friends. Wherever we're at in life, we have other priorities. We want to go to the gym instead of sitting down to write. So that's where morning writing can be helpful, right? Even if it's 5 minutes. I meditate every day, twice a day. Even if it's only 5 minutes in the morning, a couple minutes in the evening, minimum every day. And sometimes it's longer if I need it. In a similar way, we have to find a time for our writing. And it can be different times, but it has to become part of our life. It can't be on our to-do list. Get writing off of your to-do list and into your active everyday life. So what do we do with writer's block? People, how do we conquer writer's block? How do we kill writer's block? How do we destroy writer's block? How do we fool writer's block? How do we get around writer's block? I reject all of those questions. I hope that's not a big surprise to you. But we all talk about writer's block as this enemy. Writer's block to me is wisdom. Writer's block is not something that we try to ignore or pretend isn't there or fight or destroy or conquer. Writer's block is telling us something. What is writer's block telling us? Anyone? So in the academy, we'll teach you how to make friends with writer's block, how to listen to the message of writer's block, which is that maybe you're going in the wrong way. You're going out of aggression. It can be a subtle self-aggression, but you're going through willpower. You're trying to fulfill your idea of what you want to write, instead of actually writing genuinely from your voice what is actually here now, right? Did that make sense? When you write genuinely, it flows. When you're trying to write your great American novel or your great, international novel, your great idea, and then the writing is uneven, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Who's had that experience? You write some good stuff, some bad stuff, and then you're like confused, and then you're not sure how to fix it, and then you kind of stop, and it's a mess. And it's definitely not this great thing you visualize where you're this famous writer touring around with your pipe and your elbow patches that need to be repatched, right? Yeah, writer's block, exactly, Judith, is resistance fundamentally. And if you listen to it, instead of trying to be a bully, who here wants to be a bully? None of us. So listen to writer's block. And writer's block is sort of like a best friend who's disappointed in you, right? Writer's block is a best friend standing in the corner. They've said the same thing 20 times to you, and you're just ignoring them. And they're not even saying anything anymore. They're just standing there being like, shaking their head. And if you actually walk over to the writer's block, maybe they'll stop crossing their arms, they'll relax. You say, okay, help me out here. Talk to me. I'll listen. I'll listen this time. Get a little humble and listen to writer's block. So we'll go through that in more depth. These are the 8 kind of classes in Elephant Academy. So they're both the titles of each week that we go into depth. So I'm just talking about the kind of what and not so much too much of the how, right? Because it's an hour. But even just laying out the path and explaining a bit about it, hopefully is helpful to those of you who aren't going to do the full Elephant Academy. If only I could hear out of my ears. Okay, number 3, emotionalism. A lot of people, when I talk about a catharsis and finding your voice, they think it's like, okay, I need to share my truth. That's an expression I frankly hate. Emotionalism, our task of genuine writing and writing about our emotions, writing about our suffering, writing about our love, writing about our stories, writing about our lessons in life, it doesn't all have to be bad, isn't kind of ego masturbation. Sorry to say that word out loud. But it's not ego. It's not, oh my God, my suffering is better than yours. My story is more impressive. My adventures are more fantastic. My beauty is amazing. My boyfriend or girlfriend is cuter. My perfect life with my babies. We see a lot of that on Instagram, right? This sort of perfection, this notion of perfection is tied in. It's this sort of weird territorial competition. We are not trying to impress people with our stories, either the perfect or the suffering. Does that make sense? Is anyone following? Incredibly okay with boring moments of space. Was anyone able to hear that? Did anyone get that? Or are we just on delay? I just want to make sure we're following. So emotionalism. This isn't a competition. It's a remarkably quiet moment for 762 people. I'm going to guess that comments are delayed. Okay, so I'll just continue. So your voice is not emotionalism. Your voice is not milking any suffering you've had, milking any problems you've had. Yeah, there's a whole ton of comments. Okay, sorry. None of them were going through, and they just all went through. So as Jack Kerouac said, did it just freeze for a long time? So emotionalism, as Jack Kerouac said, it is what we least want to share, or maybe Ginsberg said this, is what we least want to share that the world is dying to hear. So on one hand, you have emotionalism, right? You want to impress people with it. Did people hear my like perfection thing? So on Instagram particularly, you see a lot of, here's my perfect family, here's my perfect adventure, here's my perfect boyfriend, here's my perfect girlfriend, here's my perfect me, I'm so beautiful, here's my sponsors. It's like all about PR and marketing sometimes, right? People get that. Or the other extreme of emotionalism is my suffering is so impressive and I had the worst childhood ever and you can't compete with that. My story is worse than yours. And you can see that even in social justice, that no one is allowed to have experienced any kind of suffering because they're privileged. Well, everyone is privileged to different extents, some of us far more than others. And we need to be aware of that. But there still needs to be some quality of empathy that we don't lose for anyone in their experience. So emotionalism, this isn't about finding your voice, is not finding your ego. It's not finding your pride and foisting that upon others, whether it's the pride in your suffering or the pride in your claimed perfection. On the other hand, so we want to luge, right? Like in the Olympics, we want to luge through the extreme of emotionalism on the one hand, and what's on the other hand? Suppression. Right? I don't want to hang my dirty laundry out. I don't want to talk about my heartbreak. I don't want to talk about my imperfection. I just am going to kind of write in vague generalities. We get a lot of this at Elephant, where people write entire articles about their profound spiritual wisdom, but they don't say anything specific. It's all just philosophical. So we don't want to suppress our story. We don't want to suppress ourselves either. So it's between the two extremes. What is between those two extremes? Our voice. Finding your voice is that very simple, very cathartic thing where you just share your experience and it's actually raw. It's actually vulnerable, like in that Allen Ginsberg quote. You know something's vulnerable when it's actually a little bit tingly. It's a little hard to share. And it could be delightful to unburden yourself of it. It could be delightful, but it's a little bit raw. It's tingly, as if Trungpa Rinpoche, the Buddhist teacher, talked about it as if like your skin and your bones were all gone. Your heart was just raw, exposed to the breeze. That's kind of what it feels like, right? Vulnerability is, a lot of people write about vulnerability, but it's emotionalism. It's this sort of pride. To me, that's what the whole empath thing is. I'm sorry if I just pissed off a bunch of empaths, which is ironic. But if you're twisting the meaning of empathy to being, I'm more empathetic than anyone else, and therefore I can't be around other people or painful things or toxic things. That's the opposite of empathy. Empathy, like Jesus or Gandhi or whomever, you want to be around the lepers. You want to be around the homeless. You want to help. You want to be around the poor. There's a power to genuine empathy. There's a power to your vulnerable voice, just as it is. Okay. Number 4, drawing in your reader. So, right, exactly, an empathy competition. So there's a, number 4. I just wrote an article on Kobe Bryant. Did anyone here happen to read it? Or I wrote an article on the antique and Craigslist kind of way of life. Did anyone happen to read that? Maybe we could put the links in the sidebar. You can read them later if you're so inspired, but no need. Those articles hit a nerve. They connected. There's tons of other things I've written that in my experience were coming out of my voice. They were genuine. They were vulnerable. They were pretty good, you know, but they didn't connect. So some things connect and some things don't. And that has very little to do with your voice. Can we all repeat that? Some things connect and some things don't. It's like a tree falling in a forest and no one's around here. You might have written something beautiful, but it just, like Kaiser Sose, it just doesn't connect. And that has very little to do with your voice. So a lot of times writers will say, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Why am I not connecting? What am I doing? You may not be doing anything wrong particularly. Maybe there's some things our editors can help you with. And in the Academy, our editors work with you. And if you just joined late, you can get $108 off Elephant Academy. It's starting pretty shortly. It's a great way to start the new year by finding your voice, finding your kind of life's purpose. And I'm seeing a squirrel running around with a huge pumpkin on her roof. Piece of pumpkin. It's adorable. It should be a Hallmark card for composting or something. And he's just tearing off big hunks and eating it. It's kind of amazing. So some things connect, some things don't. Has very little to do with your voice. You may not be doing anything wrong, but there is an art to framing your voice so that it connects. And that art is separate from your voice. It doesn't mean that it should be insincere, doesn't mean that it should be fake, doesn't mean that it's whatever, but it's a different art. It's a different craft. If you are a writer, You have to not only find your voice, or if you are someone who wants to write and out of your voice. Thank you, Donna. That's very sweet. If you're a writer and you want to find your voice, you have to learn how to package it. It's kind of like you buy a Christmas present or a birthday present or a Hanukkah present or whatever, Children's Day present, which is the Buddhist tradition of the solstice. But you got to package it, right? So there's a second step. And if you don't package it in the writing context, it may not connect. So the Kobe one somehow connected. The Craigslist one, I thought was like a super boring subject. I'm writing about Craigslist, I'm writing about antiquing, I'm insulting modernism, which everyone loves, white houses and black frame window frames, and I hate it, drives me insane. I call it like taste for people who don't have taste. So I wrote about this boring thing and I put it out there, and now it has 162,000 readers because some people wanted to argue with it. And I don't hate all of modernism. I love Eames. I love some of the traditions. And I also was saying F minimalism. And I also appreciate minimalism, the eco aspects of it, but big empty white rooms with a glass coffee table and Dwell magazine, which I love. I've subscribed hypocritically. It's just a quality magazine, but everything's positioned perfectly as if no one lives there. I don't like that. I don't admire it. I like warm, cozy homes. Anyway, that's what my article is about, and it connected. So how do we connect? How do you draw in your reader? Well, who here is active on Instagram? You're not going to connect on Instagram by being louder, by being bigger, by spending more money on sponsored posts than Coca-Cola. Who here has a bigger budget than Coca-Cola? None of us. If you do, let's talk. If you do, you're probably running for president and you're Mike Bloomberg or Donald Trump or Tom Steyer or something. Anyway, how do you connect? You don't connect by competing with the shock and the awe and the noise and the sound and the fury. You connect by being genuine. You connect by not being desperate. You connect by connecting. You connect by being genuine. You connect in the exact same way that you connect with your best friend in a cafe when you're talking about a movie, when you're just like, hey, I heard this movie was really good, or I saw this movie, it was amazing. Do you want to go see it? Or you should go see it. You connect by being genuine. Being genuine is a craft, but it is not a craft based on not being genuine. You're not trying to trick people. Trungpa Rinpoche, again, that Buddhist fellow, he said the best strategy of all is oh my God, this is my flu brain, but it's something along the lines of being gentle or being genuine or having no strategy. And that's also kind of reflected in Art of War. And that isn't some like, yeah, totally, dude, the best strategy is no strategy at all. The best strategy is to be genuine and to connect, because people feel that. And in this Instagrammy PR world where everyone's trying to sell you something, right? They put up commercials during foul shots in basketball now. We try to fill every single space. On basketball uniforms, there's now a goddamn like NASCAR-like ad. Capitalism fills space. So offer a little bit of space. Listen, be genuine. We'll talk more about that, but there's the coffee shop analogy. Who here has done the academy or remembers the coffee shop analogy? Does anyone other than the staff who's here? So the coffee shop analogy is basically, do we have time for this? Let's all focus and listen to this because you really have to get the whole thing. So you've written this beautiful thing, right? In the coffee shop analogy or the bookstore analogy, the retail shop analogy, you're busy. Kendall, you remember it? You're busy, you're going somewhere. You're going to get your parked car. Okay, can one of you write about it really quickly? It would be great to hear from, so David, Leslie, Kendall, Jennifer, if one of you wants to write it out. But basically, you're super busy, your car is on the meter and it's going to expire at 3 hours and 3 hours are up. So you're busy. You're walking down Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado, and you're busy. Maybe you're looking at your phone. You're being busy. So the coffee shop analogy is, hey, Sukriti. So there's a sandwich board, which drives me crazy. They're always in the way. But the sandwich board has some nice quote by Keats or Yeats or whatever. Maya Angelou, whoever. A nice quote, and you read it, and it says, oh, Trident Cafe and Booksellers. And it makes you pause. Maybe you put away your phone, you look at a tree, you notice that you're alive. You look at this coffee shop, and remember you're in a rush. You're not planning on going in. You look at the coffee shop, and it's all brown and maroon and blue and dark green paneling, and there's golden lights in the inside, and there's people milling about, drinking coffee and talking, actually having conversations, and there's books everywhere, and it looks so warm and cozy. So the sandwich board made you pause. The golden lit windows and all the people made it feel safe, like, oh, other people like this, and it looks cozy. If it's frozen, just refresh. Someone say that in the comments. And then you look up at the sign, which is like the title of the blog or the article or the book, and the sign is both kind of understandable, but it's also sort of fun. Trident Cafe and Booksellers. It's sort of old-fashioned. Or it could be, some of my favorite names are what's his face, who creates like superhero costume outfitting. What's his name? The writer. He creates these writing tutoring situations. David, whatever. I have his books. Flu Brain. So anyway, you look at the title, you look at the window, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm probably not going to get a ticket. I'm going to just pop in and just check it out and maybe get a used book and just see the community, and maybe I'll get a coffee or not. That is the most uncapitalism experience ever, because even though it's retail, it made you pause, it made you stop, it made you actually say, oh, maybe there's more to life than rushing around being on my phone. Maybe there's something like community, and I want to check it out. So that is the art of, so the sandwich board is like the intro, if you're sharing it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. The title is like the retail sign. The windows are the image or the book cover. So we'll go into that in the Academy. So it is not enough to write genuinely. It is not enough to find your voice and share that. You have to figure out how to deliver it, how to connect without selling out your integrity or your voice. Oh, Kathy, look at you. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. The notion I remember from Sun Tzu is that you have to have an open mind. If you have a fixed battle plan going in and you don't account for terrain or the enemy, you have to know the enemy, all that stuff, is you can adapt and you can be, is like the quotes by Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if we have those readily available, Emily or Molly, but Sherlock Holmes said, I am not a genius. I simply go into the crime scene with an open mind and I arrange all the clues I can find, and that is the truth, no matter how unbelievable. Everyone else does the opposite. They have an idea. The wife killed the husband because of X. So they have an idea, they go in and they arrange all the clues that they find to that idea, to that preconception, overlooking other clues that don't fit with it. You can see that in political arguments all the time. It is a capital mistake, therefore, to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories, instead of theories to suit facts. And that is the art of journalism right there. It's the same thing, minus the awful accent. Number 5, how are we doing for time? We'll pretend I'm doing fine. All right, is everyone enjoying this? Are people asleep? Are you alive? Tons of comments, so I'm assuming it's good. But always like to check in. So if you arrive late, I'm sick, but I'm better. And I think I just can hear out of my left ear. It's a breakthrough. Okay, number 5. This one is really complex. We're just going to touch on it, but we go into it in depth in the Academy. And again, if you're just joining, there's a discount if you join live or if you join very briefly after this of $108 right below. I need to reserve time for asking questions, so I need to roll forward. So live editing, live editing, live editing, live editing, live editing. It is so exciting. Live editing is like jazz. It's like you're forming the sound of your words, right? As you sing, as you write, as you play the note out of the depth of your being. So live editing. What the hell is live editing? So you can write stuff and then you can come back and edit it. There's some problems with that. There's also some pluses to that. One is you have some perspective. You have perspective on what you might have been missing when you wrote it live, right? But you're also more distant from what you wrote, and your ego is in play in a different way than when you wrote it live. So you're very, like, I wrote a lot of vulnerable stuff. I don't know if you read my book, Things I Would Like to Do With You, but I wrote some vulnerable stuff. When I went to edit it later, I was embarrassed by a lot of that. That is bad. You don't want your editing brain to try to cover up your vulnerability. Does that make sense? Some good advice here. Yeah, I'm definitely doing the hot water. The apple cider's over there. I got in my ears. Okay, well, we'll not focus on me. Okay, so live editing is actually editing it live while you're writing, and maybe I won't go into it that much more, but the editing after the fact still can play a role, particularly with working with an editor, whether it's a friend or a professional you've hired or whatever, and we talk more about that. But in Elephant Academy, you'll actually have access, focused access from all the editors at Elephant Academy, as well as a mentor in a small group. Everyone will get a small group. So if you're a little bit shy, you can have all your questions answered either one-on-one or in that small group. And then you'll have big classes kind of like this one. And then you'll have whole lesson plans and things, videos, resources. So I'm not going to go more into live editing because there's no way to really teach it right now. But it's a thing, and it's magic, and it's wonderful. It enables you to edit it without it all being messy while you're writing it without losing the thread of the inspiration. This is a time, if you are trying to write a book, to give a shout out to the indie book course that I created. So I created a course that is pretty cheap. I don't remember what, but like $350 or something. And it's elephantjournal.com/indiebook. And it goes how to write, publish, edit, publish, and sell the hell out of your book. Maybe someone can put that in the link in the sidebar. So if you're focused on writing a book, that could be good for you. It doesn't have the live component that, for some reason, that didn't link. Oh well. Anyway, the link's there. Number 6. So that live editing is basically one thing I can't cover right now because it actually involves teaching in depth. But it's a thing, and it's good to know about. Number 6. Finding your voice through being edited and working with editors. So as writers, a lot of us, editors are almost like the enemy. Editors mess up our writing. We don't trust them. They have weird ideas. They change our titles. Who here is scared of or frustrated by editors ever? I am. As a writer, it's your work to do 2 opposing things. One is to be humble. Listen. This is number 6. Finding your voice through being edited and working with editors. One of them is to be humble and to listen and to really take in their perspective. Their job is not to fix your writing. Their job is to make sure your writing is helpful and connects with the audience. And they may have to help you find your audience as well, or identify your audience. Number 2, so that's number 1, right? Being humble, learning from them. Number 2 is you do want to play defense against your editors if you don't trust them. So try to find an editor or two who you trust and you respect. I have many in my life, but if you are working with editors you don't know or trust, it is your job to listen, but also advocate for your sentences and advocate for your title and stuff if you really feel it. So you have to be your own kind of, you have to represent yourself. You have to kind of be, you're a little lawyer for yourself. But you don't want to be too combative. You want to listen and defend, listen and defend. Jack Kerouac, as you can imagine, was wholly dependent on his editors. F. Scott Fitzgerald, as you can imagine, was wholly dependent on his editor. Maxwell Perkins. Well, Hunter S. Thompson didn't use an editor, and it showed, for better and for worse, right? Kerouac didn't use the same editors for some of his things, and they're frankly somewhat unreadable. And writing shouldn't be this sort of jerk-off thing where you're just kind of doing it for yourself. Nothing's wrong with doing it for yourself, but ultimately writing involved in the process of writing, like baking, is serving that croissant to people, is connecting, is being a benefit. There's nothing wrong with writing for yourself. If that's all you ever want to do, at least 2/3 of this applies to that still. But there is something about writing that can be helpful and powerful and actually help save and change and be a benefit in terms of this world. Okay, number 7. When you are editing your own work, remember you are a reader first. So when you edit your own work, come at it from a fresh perspective, from the perspective of a reader. We've all, had this experience of writing things that we understand. Yeah, let's not get into a debate about Hunter S. Thompson. There's a power and a beauty to not working with editors, but there's a power and a beauty to having a skilled editor. And it's really overlooked in this day and age. It's one thing we're leaving behind, and we honestly shouldn't. Based on the writing we get into Elephant every day, there's a role for editors, and there's a need for editors. They're kind of like stewards or best friends to your writing. Okay. And I can list 8,000 million amazing writers who have worked with amazing editors. And I've known many, many amazing editors working in publishing and all that. It's a craft of its own. And I think I'm a pretty darn good editor, but that's sort of irrelevant to this. So anyway, when you approach your own editing, approach it as a reader. Do you understand stuff? I always call it tree fort language. You don't want a whole bunch of like passwords and in jokes and things that the reader can't understand. So you want to come back to kind of beginner's mind, and that's super helpful because especially if you're writing something like science or fantasy, something kind of complicated with its own sort of set of terms and rules, philosophy, religion. If you're writing any of that, you need to make it understandable. I'm a big fan of making writing understandable and accessible. Otherwise, you're just kind of, again, writing for yourself, which is limited. Number 8 and final. Connecting genuinely with an audience. Wherever and however you share your work, you're doing it to connect and make a difference, not get likes. How to approach sharing it with the world, what your motivation is. So, right. So number 8 is, why are you sharing it with the world? Really coming back to your motivation. You have to examine your own motivation. If your motivation is fame or sponsors or whatever, that's okay, but you need to acknowledge that. And then you need to see if there's other motivations. Do you want to be a benefit? Do you want to help people genuinely? Most of us do. So really try to come to from the point of you're trying to write to be a benefit. There's a Buddhist expression that says, if I want to be miserable, I think only of myself. If I want to be happy, I think first of others. So you think of others and yourself, but you think first of others. So there's a quality to writing that will help it flow, where you're not just writing for yourself. You're writing to be a benefit. And Who here thinks the world needs some help in a genuine way, not in further sort of social media aggression and kind of self-righteous help, but it needs some healing, it needs some awareness, it needs some love. Writing can do that. Writing can change the whole world. Writing can save the whole world, but only if the motivation is coming from a place that is genuine. And if it's coming from that genuine place, it's actually easier to write. Writers will talk about writing flowing through them. That's what happens. It's the opposite of writer's block, right? That's what happens when your motivation is pure, when your motivation is completely, you're aware of all of your motivations. And again, making a living through your writing can be a motivation. That can be a great motivation. Okay, so we're done. The final thing is the guided meditation for writing. I'm going to try to do this in 2 minutes so that I can get to some of your asked questions, at least the top voted ones. Again, if you join during the course or right after for an hour or so, or maybe less or maybe more, I'm not going to specify, but it's a brief period of time after this, you'll get that full discount of 108. What a great way to start the new year, by joining an international group of mindful lifers and find your voice together. It's pretty fun. And you can see a lot of people who have done the Academy have come back for this. So guided meditation for writing. So the biggest obstacle to writing is, and it becomes writer's block, but the biggest obstacle is our ideas about writing. I have this idea of a plot, I've worked it out. I have this idea of a great novel. I have an idea of being a famous writer. I have all these ideas. All those ideas are fine. You can keep maybe that whole plot, but kind of like Sun Tzu, you may have to adapt your strategy or your plot or your story as however it unfolds, however it flows, right? You want to be also responsive to what naturally happens. So that's the big obstacle. That is similar to thoughts or emotions in just being human. That's our biggest obstacle in life, is our thoughts and emotions build up and tangle up, and then we go through life. If you're ever intimidated by a situation or intimidated by a person, or you're lustful for a person, or you're aggressive toward a person, or you don't care about a person, those are all big preconceptions that are all over your experience. Instead of just being open and vulnerable and experiencing it in the present moment and being genuine and relaxed and joyful, because joy naturally arises out of being genuine, that's our kind of overall obstacle. So let's do a meditation with that. So your eyes are open. Take a good posture. Eyes are open because we're not trying to block out the world. You can put your gaze down about like 45 degrees and just find your breath. If you're like me, you've been blabbing, so it's nice to just touch in with your breath. If you're like you, maybe you've been listening, but maybe you're fidgeting on your phone, you're doing other things. Anyway, just let everything go. Put your hands in a relaxed way on your thighs, on your knees. Take a good posture and find your breath in and out. Put your hands together and say, may it be a benefit. So that's a general expression that applies to anyone in any religion or non-religion. May it be of benefit. That is our approach. That is our vision or intention, our mission. It's very simple. May whatever I do be of benefit, even my mistakes. Come back to your breath now that we've started with a bow. Eyes are open. Just breathe in and out. Place your attention particularly on your out breath. Your in breath, you can just kind of let it happen. It's just your normal old breath. This is shamatha, resting the mind in the present moment, resting the mind in your genuine heart, which is where you'll find your voice. When you notice a thought, a distraction, A thought, it can be good or bad, happy or sad, hateful, loving, any thought you notice. So I'm having a thought about being sick, about lunch, about whatever. You just notice that, you say, I'm thinking. Like a little snap in your brain. But all you do is you say, I'm thinking. But you just think that to yourself. You don't say it out loud. And return your attention to your out breath. And then when you end after, say, 5 minutes, end with a bow. You can say other things, but basically, may it be of benefit. And that's it. You want to do that for a couple minutes. It can be very helpful not to do it in a group. It can be very helpful to do it in a group. But basically what you're doing is you're training your mind to recognize, to be aware. Let's all come back. You're training your mind to recognize, to be aware of those preconceptions, of those big, heavy thoughts, or even little itty bitty irritating thoughts, or fun thoughts. Trungpa Rinpoche said you can have a thought about lemonade and cookies. I don't know why I didn't say milk and cookies. Or it can be about murdering someone. It's not about the morality of thought. It's about noticing it and returning to your breath. And what that teaches you to do, the breath is basically a stand-in for the present moment. It's hard to cling to a breath. It's not solid. You train yourself to just relax. Whenever you have fear, anxiety, you just can relax back into the present moment. It's very powerful meditation. It's very hard. It's very simple. Emily or Molly, if you could put the Trungpa Daten meditation instructions in the sidebar. So now I'm going to jump into, with our 6 minutes, I'm going to jump into ask a question. So that's the 8 steps. And let's do some questions. Hey, from Ray, how do I gain confidence in my writing? I often feel that my opinions are not sufficient enough, and someone with a broader or deeper view on the topic will be able to expose my limited thinking. You're right. A lot of us aren't experts in things. I want to blog, but I'm concerned about not being able to adequately respond to criticism. I suspect my intuition limits my ability to stay grounded in facts when writing nonfiction. Ray, so that's beautiful and very vulnerable. The first thing I always advise with people is write about the problem. So, if I were working with you, which I guess I am right now, I would say write about not having confidence. Write about what you actually know. Those are 2 different things, but I would write about both of them in one article. Write about, it actually points to your integrity, Ray, that you don't want to pretend to have confidence or knowledge that you don't. So number one, you can obviously research and you can learn more. People who write books will research a ton, right? Even fiction, you got to research a ton. But the best thing is to write about what you know, write about your experience, and that's where that catharsis will come. It doesn't mean you have to write about you. You can write about the world, and it's in many ways better to write about other things, but you can write about it through your experience. I hope that was at all helpful. And I hope you're here. Megan, I often get discouraged writing about passionate, I often get discouraged writing about passionate topics because I catch myself getting wrapped up in judgments of the opposition. I don't want to be judgmental, and clearly I understand this is my issue and lesson. How can I keep focused on topic to express my thoughts, feelings, and passions without losing their power by judging the other side? The topics I wish to write about are against society norms and general population's adherence to the easy way of conforming. So Megan, 2 different things. One, if they're against society norms, that could be good or it could be bad. It's good to research facts, science, and actually make sure you're talking truth. You want to make sure you're being truthful. There are norms that are not helpful in society, and there are norms that are based on science, say. Number 2, it's okay to judge other people. Judging isn't prejudice. You know what prejudice is? Prejudging, prejudice. And that's what we were working with that meditation. You have your thoughts, you have your preconceptions, your prejudgments. Judging is what we all do when we decide what to have lunch. Should I have a pile of poop right? Pile of dog poop on the lawn. Should I eat that for lunch? Or should I have an organic apple with a sandwich and a little side salad and some coffee for lunch? That's a judgment. Judging isn't bad. Judging out of your preconceptions is kind of bad. So it's okay to say, like if you're talking about politics, that Republicans should look at the science of climate change and support climate change. There's a lot in traditional republicanism that, like Nixon advanced Clean Air and Water Act and, things Trump is tearing apart. These are not traditional Republican values. I'm not a Republican, but I think Republicans traditionally would and should love, say, our national parks or clean air, clean water, etc. So it's okay to talk about science and talk about judgments because people do things that are maybe not true or not moral all the time, including, say, Democrats in that analogy. But not everything is equal, and it's okay to judge. But it's not okay to prejudge because then you're just putting more kind of your mental slime, your neuroses on the world. Okay, going up. How can I stop self-doubt and worries of other people's feelings preventing me from expressing myself truthfully, Alice? So that's a fear, right? That's a fear a lot of us have, number one. Number two, writing about your fear, writing about your self-doubt, writing about that vulnerably, you will be delighted by the connection you will make, because who here feels self-doubt and worries about other people's feelings preventing yourself from expressing yourself truthfully? Show of hands, anyone in the comments? We all are self-conscious as human beings. Even animals are self-conscious. So if you're just joining, we're kind of wrapping up. You can play the whole thing. Everything's recorded. For the next, say, hour or two, you can save $108 if you want to join Elephant Academy. If you've enjoyed this, we'll go into more depth. We'll go into a lot of other fun things. And mostly we'll have amazing community. And we'll write our hearts out and we'll write truthfully. We'll find our voice. It's a great way to start the rest of your life. It's a great way to start 2020. And gosh knows the world needs some love. So I hope this has been fun. I hope this has been meaningful. Maybe in a word, say, has this been fun, meaningful, awful, boring? Waylon was sick and now I feel sick. From David, for those of you on the fence, I was uncertain about the academy when I took a chance and enrolled. It changed my life. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And he is an active writer. Do it if you can. Thank you, David. Beneficial, awesome. Thank you, meaningful. Your place looks cute. Thank you, meaningful, worthwhile. Thank you, meaningful, beardy, insightful, inspired, wonderful. It will be available to rewatch, and I implore you to join Elephant Academy. It's super fun, and it's all the more fun with all of you 773 folks. All right, thank you, everyone. Let's take a good posture and end with a bow right on time. All right.